Welcome to the Red Dad Podcast, where we'll be exploring the trials and triumphs of being a father, men's mental health, and any other topic that inspires us to be rad. Through a series of interviews, your host, Jace Kelly, will be discussing and discovering the best ways to become a rad dad. Now your host, Jace.
All right, welcome to the Rad Dad Podcast. This is episode 7. I have my good friend Rob Stratton on. Thanks for coming out.
You betcha. Glad to be
a little bit about having you on for the past few weeks. So I know you're busy. Glad to lock you down and have you on here.
Yeah.
You ever been on a podcast?
No, I haven't. I've watched them happen.
Okay.
I've watched a lot of them.
Well, here you are.
But I've never been on one, so this is great.
Cool. So just to start things out, I want to just hear like how you grew up, where you grew up, and maybe some of the things you admired about your dad.
Yeah, good question. So I grew up in Bountiful, Utah, and up on the top of the hill. And it was unique because I don't want to say we were poor, but we had, like, my dad was kind of in and out of jobs, and he did commercial real estate development and things like that. So there was great times and there was lean times. And so a lot of my growing up was I had to work. Like, I remember having a paper route from like 10 years old until I was like almost in high school. And I always like had this dream that because I could like throw so good, I was going to like be in the NFL, like a quarterback. Right. But growing up was great. Like, I worked hard and we loved the mountains. Like, we were right up on the mountain, and so I just have memories of riding my bike and exploring with my siblings. I'm one of 7, and I'm second to last, so everybody's older than me. And I just remember working and playing. And it's like the childhood that everybody would want, I think.
Yeah. A
little bit of danger, excitement, frontier.
Do you feel like these new generations have lost the desire or the lifestyle of, scraped knees and building bike jumps and being out in the woods?
Absolutely. Like, I just look, and some of it has to do with how we develop land now, where you come in and there's these neighborhoods and there's so many houses around. There's not parks, there's not mountain, it's all flat, and you get less of that. And so I think that absolutely the next generation doesn't always experience that as much. You have to be more intentional if you want your kids to have those type of experiences, you have to go create them, because they're not just going to be there. Like, I'd go outside and, across the street in my circle was the mountain. And so I could go, there's a vacant lot. We'd go up and there's like the forest, and we're riding our bikes and doing those things. Like, it wasn't hard to find that. Yeah.
So, just give me a quick, simple breakdown of your family. How many kids, ages?
Okay, so I have 4 kids. I have a son and 3 daughters, and then it's every 2 years from 10, 8, 6, 4. So my son is the oldest, and then I got my 3 daughters behind them.
So have you put much thought into how you're going to keep your kids active growing up? And I mean, maybe they can't be up in the mountains, but what are some alternatives?
So one of them, sports is big. Like, I grew up playing sports. I still play sports. I love sports. Yeah. And so I've really pushed that onto my kids. And I feel like as parents, some people are like, well, you shouldn't push your kids into your hobbies or your type of things and let them evolve. And I think there is some reality to that. Like, you do need to let their personalities choose. Yeah. But at the same time, I think it's absolutely appropriate to help initiate those type of things. So my son, he is going to be in the NFL in his mind. Like, he loves football right now. He wants to watch it. He talks about it. He plays with his friends. He has jerseys. His goal is he wants to go to a Patrick Mahomes game. Like, he's so into it. And then he loves pickleball. He loves golf. He's on a bantam basketball team. So for my son, absolutely. It's a little bit harder with my daughters right now because my wife didn't grow up doing sports. She was like a song and dance and play the piano, more activities. And so my daughters, I've had to really help them play more sports. And so my daughter's playing basketball. They all play pickleball and they love it. So they're getting more into it. And I think as they get older, they'll continue to play more sports. And then, so sports is one way, but I am huge when it comes to what I call adventures. Like, I think it's important that my kids have adventures and that these adventures are hard. And so usually those adventures take place in the mountains. So just this last summer, I took my 10-year-old and an 8-year-old, and we went and did it's like a 5-mile rappelling slot canyon down in Zions National Park. And it took us, we went in the middle of the summer. So before you get in the slot canyon, you're 95 degrees. You have to hike in over, 2 miles into the slot canyon. And then the next 4 hours, you're going down rappels, some of which are 100 plus feet.
Wow.
And it's scary. Like, as an adult, right? You're like, is this rope going to hold me? Obviously we do all the rigging right and we're safe and we go through that process. But I think those type of experiences are so important for my kids in that they do hard things. So I like the phrase, we do hard things safely, right? And those type of experiences put them in positions that they normally are not in. Like, a lot of our society, our school, and it's all about being safe and comfortable.
Yeah.
Right? And the reality is life is not safety and comfort. Like, work is a battlefield. Like, you're fighting to get like, and back in the day, it was like, you got to get out of the cave and you got to go shoot something and bring it back to the cave. Well, a lot of it's the same way. Like, yeah, we're not out hunting for our food day in and day out, but you're battling against coworkers for the next promotion, or with that team, or you're trying to hit a sales number, or you have issues with management, you're trying to hit production numbers. Like, we battle, it's just a different battlefront. And our kids, I feel like, are not as prepared for that. So adventures for me is a big thing I do to kind of explore and get my kids in uncomfortable situations. I want them to be comfortable being uncomfortable and knowing how to deal with that.
I love that. And I, as I've observed you, the way you live your life, you do this stuff for yourself as well.
Yeah.
You go on adventures,
I love
right?
it.
You're mountain biking, you're climbing, whatever. So that's awesome. And I'm sure you've seen your kids, build more confidence in uncomfortable situations through doing those things. But I want to get your thoughts on this. I feel like society, we've kind of developed into a society where you can still be rewarded if you're not the hunter. If you it's okay to shy away from things and to not be out of your comfort zone because you're safe, and we reward those things, right?
Sure.
Do you feel like that is going to continue, or do you feel like as a society, eventually it's going to come full circle and the hunters will prevail?
Well, if you look at nature, like, just because you want the wolves to be nice to the sheep, like, and I know wolves and sheep is such it's been politicized a little bit, but the idea is, like, wolves are wolves. Like, it doesn't matter how much you try and educate them to be nice to the sheep. Like, they need to eat. They're going to eat.
Yeah.
And you have to recognize that there are certain personality traits. Like, if everyone was an entrepreneur, no one would work for anyone, right? And so I think it's just helping your kids and their personalities really be successful where they can, right? But in answer to your question, yeah, I think it's going to come full circle. I don't think that this participation trophy generation is I don't think that can last. I think it's going to create some real societal issues if it continues. I think it's going to not collapse, but there's going to be a full circle that happens, kind of a reset on that attitude, I think, personally. Because, I don't know, from a spiritual standpoint, it's not going to get any easier. Yep. And I don't think that mentality is one that can be successful as things get harder.
Perfect.
Right.
I love it. And I agree. Something else I've observed about you and your relationship, your marriage, you and I are similar in that we have a lot of different interests and we get passionate about stuff. We love to learn, try new things. I feel like in order to do that, you need a supportive spouse. So I want to get your thoughts on supporting your wife, because she has a lot of her own interests and
she does
stuff that she pursues. But she also allows you to go out and do these crazy things, play pickleball tournaments and go on mountain biking trips and stuff.
Yeah.
How has that developed throughout your years of marriage, and what advice do you have to young couples that want to do the same?
Yeah. So I would say that in the earlier parts of our marriage, it probably was out of balance towards me. Like Ashley would stay at home and kind of take care of the kids. And I feel like that was her primary role. And she kind of got lost in that a little bit. Not that there's anything wrong with that, right? But I feel like a little bit of her self-identity and some of the goals and things that were really important to her kind of got put onto the back burner for a little bit. But where I wasn't home all day with the kids, I still was able to pursue some of those things. And I would say in the last 5 years, we've had a lot more balance in being able to both pursue our goals and being supportive. And it wasn't that I didn't want to be supportive. Her main focus, though, was on the kids. Right. So I think now as she's really, as our kids have gotten a little bit older, she's had a little bit more time to think about, hey, what is important to me and how do I pursue that? And I'm like my wife's cheerleader, right? I am 100% behind her and pushing her to go and be as successful as possible in what she wants to do.
Yeah.
Because I think that's important. I think that we kind of have different roles as father. So I have my own roles and I have goals that I set in those to be successful. So I have my role as a father, right? And so I say with each of my kids, what are the things that I want to get done as a father and do that? And I go through all of those. And one of my role as a husband is how do I support my wife so that she can feel accomplished, so that she can feel that she has value outside of just being a mother and that she can push forward towards her own interests or desires or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of it comes from one, really recognizing the importance of having that. I think some people you don't recognize, you just kind of go about your life. So I'd say you have to be intentional to recognize that. And then honestly, like planning, like proper planning.
Interesting.
So every Sunday, my wife and I, we sit down and we go through our week and say, what do you have? What do I have? How do I support you in this? And she's like, hey, I have these, I have some interviews I'm doing that can you help this day just get the kids to school because I have my first one at 9. And so I'll look at my work schedule and say, I can't do that this day. I have these 2 meetings. Or like, hey, yeah, I'd love to. I'll get the kids to school and then head off to work. And so and it sounds stupid, but like getting you and your wife on the same page from a calendar perspective is like so critical.
It's interesting how easy it is to not be on the same page.
Yeah.
Like you live together. That's the most important person in your life. Yet you can be off.
You can get lost. You can just get lost in the daily things that exist in life.
Yeah.
And it takes discipline too. Like you can have a hard day at work or a long day at work and you come home and you're like, hi, let's make dinner and let's just hang out and not even worry about things and do anything. Like, and that's okay. Like you need time, you need downtime, but it takes intentional effort to make it successful.
Yeah. Do you feel like it takes more effort with more kids?
Absolutely. There's just more. It's not that it's harder. There's just more things happening.
Yeah.
Right. So we're in a busy stage where, my daughters do sing and shout like twice a week. It's 2 hours. And my son has practice twice. He has pickleball practice twice a week. And then he has basketball practice twice a week. And he has 2 games a week. So you just look at the events that they have and they just have things happening. So you just have to coordinate because there's just more. There's just more of it.
Yeah, there's so many moving parts. I can't even imagine in my head like having more than one kid right now. But sometimes I sit down on the couch. I'm like, I better enjoy this because in 5 years right now, I'm going to be driving to a practice or picking someone up, Absolutely. Like our first kid, I don't know, I look back. It's so easy to live in the present, right? So sometimes I have a hard time remembering. Like when we had our third kid and I had a 4-year-old, 2-year-old, and a newborn. That is like blurry now. Yeah.
But I just remember you just like, you feel pulled in so many different places and you're just trying to like give each kid the attention and love that they need and helping build them how you need to build them. Right. And when you have one, dude, it is such an opportunity just to have that one-on-one time.
Yeah.
It really is.
It's been awesome. Going back to supporting your spouse, I thought about this a lot, and especially in the state we live in Utah, it's really pressed that the mom has a very large role in the family, which is great. But I also have the thought that sometimes moms can get lost in motherhood and not have it's dangerous when they don't have a purpose outside of motherhood. Do you agree with that? And do you feel like it's important to have a purpose outside of parenting?
Absolutely, I agree. And with my wife, she absolutely kind of got lost in mothering. Not that she didn't love it.
Right.
But sometimes like it can be really fulfilling and very lonely at the same time. And I think, my wife dealt with postpartum depression, and she didn't necessarily know what that was or have experience with that. So she'd have times where she's like, why am I so sad when I have all of these things in my life that are so wonderful?
Yeah.
Right. And it's 100% just a hormonal thing. It's not like a mental thing. She was just like, my hormones are out of whack. And so it creates these feelings. But I think 100% it is so important to have those things. Like I look at if all I did was take care of kids all day, and I think I would like have a really hard time with that. I could be successful if I continue to have these other things. And I think part of being successful in that is some people try and separate the two, saying I have to have these things and then I can have my motherhood or my fatherhood over here. But what Ash and I have found is that it is okay to bring our kids into some of these hobbies and some of these things that we do anyway. Yeah. Right. So that's where like some of those adventures come in. Like I want to go on those slot canyons and experience that. Kids, right? Might as well bring them and have them enjoy that.
Absolutely.
And same with sports. Like I love sports. I love watching and playing. And so my son, it's kind of a natural, hey, just come and participate with me.
Yeah.
Right. Involving your kids in those, I think is a very healthy way to enjoy it and also have that time with your kids.
Yeah. It allows you to connect and still enjoy the time, right? You're not sitting down and watching Cocomelon or Barney with them. Something that you don't. It's something that you enjoy, and they make that connection. And then
you're sick of Cocomelon, so you get on your phone, and all of a sudden you're like, no one's parenting anymore. He's watching his thing, and I'm doing my thing.
That's so true.
We're sitting together, but there's no connection. Yeah. There's no interaction.
Yeah. Do you feel like having a purpose outside of parenthood has strengthened your relationship with your wife because you both feel more balanced and you can connect?
Absolutely. Like just last night, my wife and I were talking for 30 minutes. We were just laying in bed. Yeah. And we usually try and, we go to bed trying relatively early, like 11 o'clock. But from 11 to like 11:40, we were just talking as she's recording a video for some keynote speeches. My wife's a public speaker, and she's preparing for this. And we were just talking through her keynote and going through the details and talking about it. And that level of connection that we have in helping her pursue her goals is a wonderful connection that we have now, where if she didn't pursue that, we wouldn't have that.
Interesting.
And so because we're kind of pursuing those things, it's allowed new connections between my wife and I that otherwise weren't there.
That's so cool. And you said you're her biggest cheerleader, so I'm sure she loves to bounce ideas off of you and have a stimulating conversation with an adult, right?
Yes. Yep. That's exactly what it is. It's different. I mean, she can't even talk to our kids about some of these things. I mean, she applies some of the principles as she's from her public speaking. But being able to have like a mentally engaging dialogue is important.
Yeah. That's awesome. Just to turn the tables a little, tell me about what you do for a living and how you got into it.
So right now I currently help run and operate a large landscape company. We do general construction too. But started it with my cousin, and then we brought my uncle on back in 2008. And we've just the same company. We've been running it since then. We've acquired some other companies and just grown it to almost an unmanageable. It's really hard to manage now. It was a lot easier back then, but we've been able to grow it really large. So my role in the company now, I sit on our executive team, and I'm over all of our revenue. So that's our sales, our marketing, our business development, and kind of all of our client relations. And it's been a wild ride. It really has. We've been blessed along the way. And, we continue to really, really be blessed in the projects we get and the people that we're able to hire that make it doable. Because it's a team thing. Like, it's not anything I could do by myself.
Yeah. Was it a jump to go into this career path, and were there risks that you took?
So it was kind of a natural, it was interesting how it started. My cousin and I, we grew up working on golf courses. My uncle, my grandpa, and my dad built golf courses and had sold some off and then maintained one in Cascade Fairways in Orem, Utah. And we kind of, Zach more than I, because I grew up in Bountiful, but in the summers I'd come and work, and we grew up with that experience of kind of landscaping, mowing the greens, mowing the fairways, fixing irrigation pipes, just kind of being in the dirt and doing that. Mm-hmm. And then we have a big farming aspect where we'd go to farmers markets, sell fruit, make money. So after we got home from our missions, we both spoke Spanish. We came home and were working on the golf course. It was in 2008, and golf was like down. People weren't using their excess money to go golfing.
Yeah.
That just wasn't a thing. And so my uncle said, hey, we got all these guys who have worked for us for 30 years. Their families, basically, they're family to us. Let's see why don't you guys go do something, see what you can figure out. So Zach and I had this great idea that we're going to go cut lawns and save all the grass clippings and then feed these cows. We're going to have cows, grass-fed beef. That was our...
Okay. I love it.
It was, no, in concept, it was fantastic, but...
You're ahead of the times,
I was
actually.
ahead of the times, grass-fed beef, right. So, after going through some numbers and some good coaching from my uncle, we realized that probably wasn't going to work very well. So we started doing landscaping. We passed out flyers. I mean, just as basic as you can get.
Yeah.
I mean, Facebook was the only social media at that time, and it was just beginning. It wasn't a business yet. It was just people connecting. And so it was word of mouth. Like, that's how we had to grow, and that's what we did. We just went out and grinded hard and got our name out there and did a good job, and it just grew from there.
Do you feel like how did you manage the growth and scaling that? Because without experience, it's kind of taking a shot in the dark.
Yeah, no, we say all the time, it's baptism by fire.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yep.
So there's so much information out there, and a lot of it is kind of a little bit of a trial and error, right? Just saying, hey, this is something that we've seen others have talked about working. Let's see if we can implement it in a small scale in our business and see what happens. And if it's great, hey, let's roll it out on a bigger scale and go from there. But it really it takes courage to recognize that you don't know everything and doing your best to mitigate risk as you move forward.
So in scaling a business, I think, like you said, it does take courage. There's always going to be risk involved, but also taking pride in your work and doing quality work, right? You're never really going to scale a business if you're just out there making a quick buck.
Yeah.
Right. Talk to me about taking pride in your work.
So I would say one of our core values is two of our core values. One, we care how we get there, right? So it's not the end product that's the most important thing for us. It's the process. And in landscaping, that's so true. If you don't follow the correct process, you're going to have serious issues when you get to the end of the project.
Yep.
So we care how we get there, and we try and translate that down to each guy, saying, like, it's important the way you plant here, or the way you spread the topsoil here, or how you glue pipe here. Like, each one of those things is important and matters. So paying attention, the differences in those little details for a project to be successful. And then two is really recognizing like who our clientele are and focusing on our clients and really giving them the highest level of service that we can. In that I have so many people, kind of the frontline guys, that we're only as good as our worst guy.
Yeah.
And when you have, 250 to 300 people, that becomes really hard to have a high level of quality with each person. We try to, but our industry, it's hard to recruit good people into our industry. And there's a lot of competition in the construction trades. Mm-hmm. And so part of it is putting an emphasis on our relationships with the clientele. They recognize that even though, hey, maybe our quality is only at 90% rather than 100%, but because of that relationship, there's some give and take that is so critical in us being successful. And so those principles of really, we care how we get there, and an emphasis on our client and giving them everything that we can allows us where quality maybe isn't always where we want it, but because of those things, we know that we have a little bit of a buffer to play with.
Kind of fills in the gaps.
Yeah.
Cool.
Because I would love it if every project 100% there was perfect quality on everything.
Yeah.
But, when you have 52 crews on 52 different sites, it's really hard to maintain that.
Since 2008.
Since 2008.
15-ish years.
Yeah.
Okay, so 15 in the 15 years, is there a moment or moments where you thought, I am proud of this? I'm proud of what I built, and what are those moments?
Yeah, they're definitely very proud moments. That's the nice thing about what I do in landscaping is you have such a tangible product at the end.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'd have a hard time if I was in maybe software sales where it's really the tangible product is money, right? That's maybe your indicator of how you're doing.
Yeah.
Obviously money is an important aspect to us. We need to be profitable, but I'd say one of our best projects that I was really proud of at the time, I'll give you two that are really funny. Well, one's not funny and awesome, and the other's kind of funny. But One that is awesome is we landscaped the Tijuana, Mexico temple, and this was
pretty recent, right?
It was like in 2016, 2017. Okay. So it's been a couple years since we did that. But to the time, I mean, this was going to be one of our biggest projects we've ever done.
Yeah.
And a temple of this caliber. Like the landscape, if probably no one's been to this temple, but if you've been to Tijuana or imagined what Tijuana is, you're right. It's a trash hole. Like there's nothing nice there. There really isn't. Like I would never want to live in Tijuana just because it's there. And Mexico is beautiful. I love Mexico. I'd go to Mexico all the time. And there's beautiful places in Mexico, but the city of Tijuana it's a border town and there's a lot of challenges that come with that. So to see this temple with the landscape in this city, there's not another building like it within 300 miles in Mexico. And so to see the people be able to go and enjoy, and not just members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but just the community be able to see something so nice and so beautiful and be able to enjoy that was very satisfying.
Yeah.
Right. So that was probably like one project that I was like, man, this is awesome. We're not just trying to make money or do projects. Like we're changing communities by beautifying landscapes. And that was really gratifying. Another one that's kind of funny. Well, I'll give you one more too. We were able to do some charity work for a family up in Ogden. Her husband had died. He was the mayor of Ogden, and he had died overseas in Iraq. And we were able to go and help her on her family farm. He had this dream of having a farm and 5 acres up in Ogden. And after he died, it was just so unmanageable. But the family didn't want to move because that was like a piece of their dad, right? And his dream, and they had participated in it. Yeah. So we were able to go up and help give them something that was manageable, help create a landscape that they could still have that farm feel and do farming, but at a manageable level for their family. And just, it's been awesome that our business has grown in a way that we're able to give back to our community and those who are around us. Cause I feel like that's one of a really gratifying thing is you're not just in it for you, but it's like, hey, if we can do things right, it allows us to have access to share and to build up the community. So that was a big one. A funny one at the time when we were first starting is we were awarded a contract up at Weber State University. It was for all the athletic fields, doing the maintenance on them. And we had no idea what we were doing. I mean, the fact that they allowed us to do the maintenance was unbelievable.
So timeline.
So this was like year 2 or 3 of the company.
That's big.
Yeah, like we had no idea what we were doing. I shouldn't say no idea. We'd maintained the golf course, which was more acreage than the athletic field. So I shouldn't say we didn't know what we were doing, but it was.
But year 2, I mean.
Yeah, like we were still fresh. Like I'm 25 at this point, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not very old, and some of these experiences I was having were very new. But that was one that. It was so exciting to have. We only had the contract for 1 year, and then they took it in-house after us. But just to go and really catch a whale. Like, we were out there fishing, pulling in these little fish, and we're like, why not? Let's go for it. Right? And I think just that attitude of why not paid off. And it's been something that's really paid off for us in the long run, is saying, well, why can't we do that? Let's go do that. Let's try that. And that at the time was just such a big contract to us that it was really exciting and fun and scary. It was terrifying at the same time. We learned a lot.
I was just going to ask you, must have learned a lot.
Yeah. A lot of really good learning experiences of how to manage a client, how to manage sites, RFPs, contracts, things like that. So it was really good.
That's awesome. Do you feel like any business owner should seek gratification beyond financial gain through their business?
So I think that if financial gain is your only objective, ultimately you're not going to be satisfied.
Interesting. Explain.
I think there comes a point.
Is this like the money doesn't buy happiness concept?
Sure.
Okay.
And money can create experiences that can bring happiness, I would say. But I think if your overall goal is money, like, and don't get me wrong, like, I need to make money and the business needs to be profitable. Yeah. Like, so don't think that I don't. That's not like one of our most important priorities is to be profitable.
Yeah, of course.
But if you're only, and there's a difference between being profitable and like, hey, I want to have all this money. I don't know. I don't know if it was me maturing in my career, but just the idea of just more money to have more became less appealing than making a difference or having an impact. And that kind of, for me personally, became more important.
I like it. People bring up that, does money buy happiness? And a lot of people say, yes, it does. But in the end, it provides a means to have other experiences and ways of growth, right?
Sure.
It doesn't directly buy
So,
happiness.
I would say money itself can't buy happiness, but money can buy experiences that you can have a good time on.
Exactly.
And it can create opportunities and things like that. So, yes, you could say money is a tool that can help facilitate happiness. Yeah. But if that's your goal, if that's the end all, I don't know and I don't know that I think some people say that that's their goal, but I don't know that many people truly just have the goal of like, I want more money and more and more and more and more.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Right? Because you even look at guys who money doesn't matter anymore, or at least the making of money because they have so much, and they go and what do? They go and like have experiences.
Yeah.
Right? So do you need money to have experiences? And I'd say you don't. You just have to change what the experience is going to be. Yeah, maybe you're not going to go have like this Hawaiian vacation experience, but that doesn't mean you can't go into the mountains and have an experience, right? So I don't think money should be the limiting factor in finding joy and happiness. But it can definitely help change what those adventures or those opportunities are.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Tell me about being voted or awarded the Citizen of the Year.
Oh, yeah.
You got to tell me this.
Of the Year. Do you want the whole story?
I want the story.
I mean, this is a serious story.
Bring it on.
I don't bring this out lightly.
Bring it on.
Because it like...
Tell me the award first. What was it?
I was Citizen of the Year in Bountiful City.
Bountiful City, Citizen of the Year,
2015.
2015.
I think it was 15 or 16.
Here on my podcast.
Here we are.
Yeah, let's get into it. I feel like I've got different parts of it, but I haven't heard the whole story.
Yeah, so just so you know, like this experience is so real. Like my heart is already beating faster just thinking about this experience.
Yeah, I know. You moved the mic.
I had to move the mic away. I needed more hand actions. But
yeah, if you're willing, let's.
No, that's fine. It's an amazing story. Not because I was amazing, but it's just like one of those like, how does that even happen?
Yeah.
Right. One of those things you hear about, but you're never a part of.
Yeah.
You just always hear about someone else. So to actually be a part of one, it still like blows my mind. So at the time, my wife and I, we had 2 kids. We were living in Bountiful. My mom had just passed away from cancer. And so we'd moved in with my dad just to save up some money and to kind of try and bring a little stability there. You know, you've been married for 40 years and your spouse dies. That's like life-changing.
Yeah.
So we were living in Bountiful, and I was just a normal day. I was driving. I actually had some appointments up in Park City to go meet with some clients, and driving down the hill, forgot my laptop in my backpack. Had to turn back around, go get it, come back down the hill. And I share that because it makes a difference in this whole experience, right? So coming down, and I stop at a light. And normally I'm like listening to a podcast or listening to a book or like just kind of locked in, ready for my day, making calls, like getting after it. But today, for whatever reason, I was just sitting there. And as I looked forward at this stopped light, so it's a 3-lane. You have your turn left, your go straight, and then the dreaded turn right or go straight. Like everybody hates that. Like just make it a turn right.
Yeah.
Like no one, because you get the one car at the front that's going to go straight and everybody else wants to turn right. Anyway, one of those disasters. I'm in the middle lane and all of a sudden, and I'm in my truck and I can see down into the car in front of me. It's like a brown Corolla, a little bit older, maybe in its late 90s. I don't know. I just see these are the details I remember from this experience.
I love it.
And the people in front, they're just like moving all around real weird. I'm like, what in the world? Like the fact that I'm even paying attention. Usually I'm just like, whatever. Like I'm in my own world. I'm in my truck. Don't worry about me. But I'm paying attention and I see they're just moving around. Just like, what in the world is going on? And this woman jumps out of the passenger side. We're at a red light. Cars are going. And it's busy. Like everyone's going to work. And so tons of cars everywhere. She jumps out. And it looks like just her arm is bleeding. I'm like, what in the world? I'm like, did I see that right? Everything's happening so fast, but it looks like just blood coming down her arm.
Okay.
And she goes and tries to get into the car next to her, which obviously probably freaked that person out, right? Door was locked. She couldn't get in. And so she runs onto the other side of those cars, like onto the sidewalk. And I can't see her after she goes. And there's a mail car next to me. Like, they're on the wrong side, the weird USPS or US Postal Service cars. And as she jumps out, tries to get in the car, this person driving swerves in front of the people trying to turn right and slams into the landscape where people are trying to cross the road. They're waiting to cross. Almost hits a couple
Up onto
people.
the curb.
Yeah, up onto the curb, hits a rock.
Okay.
And these people have to get out of the way as they're waiting for the light to change so they can cross the road. Guy jumps out. He's holding a big old knife.
Okay.
Just like, I'm like, holy crap.
Like a kitchen knife or like a...
What? I mean, he's, 3 car lengths away.
You just see something.
I can see what he's holding and it's a knife. Like,
Okay.
I'm just like, that's a knife. And it looks big because it's like up out of his hand. It's big. And I'm like, that's why this lady's like bleeding. Like he's been like cutting her and she's like trying to escape. And I don't remember putting my truck in park, but thankfully I put it in park. And I jump out and run around the back of my truck. I don't know why I went around the back. I just went around the back. I didn't even know what I was going to do. I was like, I'm just jumping out of my truck because I was like, this lady probably needs help and this guy is going to chase her. I don't know. Like all these thoughts. It really was single-minded. Like there wasn't this whole like mental debate. Should I help? Should I not help? It was like you jump out of your truck and you're running around. Like I was already in action mode. And as I ran around the back of my truck, there's that next lane. And I have a perfect view where he is caught up to her and was stabbing her. As he was chasing her, he grabbed her and kind of had her in a chokehold and was stabbing her in the side. And that's right as I was coming around the back of my truck.
What's your distance at this point?
Well, so you have my truck and then you have the next lane of traffic. It's that right-hand turn lane. And then you have like the little grass park. So you maybe have like 5 or 2 feet until you get to the curb. Then you have the park strip and then the sidewalk. And then there's like kind of this grass space to a gas station. So he is on the sidewalk with her, stabbing her on the side. So I'm probably what is that? Like 25 feet? Mm-hmm. And I'm tall. So I get there quickly, I feel like. Because I'm watching him stab her. And then he goes to slit her throat. Like she had a little cut on her throat. Like he was there to cut her throat. And that was like right when I got there at a full sprint. And like Coach Woodingham would have been proud of my form tackle. It was low. Somehow like I got my shoulder like right under him. and grabbed the knife and like lifted him up and like pile drove him into the ground.
Kind of all in one motion.
All in one motion.
Okay.
Right? And it just all happened so fast. So I like have the knife pinned under both of us because I landed on top of him. And he's like squirming around. So I just like start throwing him some forearm shivers. Joe Rogan would have been proud. Some forearm shivers, like punch him in the head, like just some kidney shots, and like kneeing him. Because I'm like, I don't know what this guy's going to do. Like, I don't even know who he is. Like, this guy could be like some crazy good wrestler or whatever. Like, I in that moment, I had no idea what I just got myself into. And I'm sitting here on top of this guy holding his wrist, which is holding this knife. And I'm like, hey, maybe he stabbed himself as we fell. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm just like trying to mobilize him. And he is just squirming all over the place. I'm like, and my other hand's there. And I'm like, I could get cut. So I like grab his arm and bring it around and like put it on the back of his head. I think I dislocated his shoulder as I did that. Grab the knife, throw it. And then I'm just sitting there. Now and I have my knee in his back. And I'm holding his wrist on the back of his head, and he like stops moving.
So he's belly down.
Yeah, he's belly down.
Okay.
Yep. So I'm on top of him, and I'm just like sitting there, like, what in the world just happened? Right? And then all of a sudden, it's like pandemonium. Like all of a sudden, people are getting out of their cars, and I look over, and this lady is just laying there on the ground, and she's like holding her side and like kind of screaming, and there's people coming over to help her, and then I look over, and there's this dude who's not wearing a shirt, and he's like, "You effed him up, mother effer," and he like comes up and like kneels on this guy's head and starts yelling at him. And then I turn around, and some guy is holding this dude's foot that I'm on top of, like just holding his leg, like
just
I'm helping.
in there.
I got the leg. It's not going anywhere. And it was just like, I don't think I've ever had an adrenaline-packed moment like that before in my life. Like, I've had intense moments, but that where it was like...
just full rush.
It was full on fight or flight, live or die, right? And it was like, everything seemed to work good in that moment because like it worked out. But so I'm on top of this guy. Police start showing up. And the first police officer that comes, he asks if I'm fine. He's like, "Hey, stay there." And he like goes over to make sure this lady like doesn't bleed out.
Yeah.
So then an ambulance arrives. They kind of get her. More police come, and they finally come and like cuff this guy, take him to a police, get him in the back of a police car. And I'm just sitting there, and this officer's like, "Hey, is that your truck?" My truck is just sitting in the intersection, like right where I left it.
Still
Doors
on
open,
in park.
still running, diesel's running, cars going back and forth both ways. And he's like, "Hey, why don't you go move your truck?" So I get in, pull my truck around into the gas station, and I'm just sitting there in my truck like, I'm sure I'm supposed to like do something at this point, but I don't know. And I am just like shaking. Not because I'm like scared or anything, but there's so much adrenaline.
Yeah.
Like my muscles like can't handle it. So this police officer comes over, he's like, "Hey, I need you to fill out this statement." And I can't even write. And he's like, "Oh, you're fine." He's like, "I remember the first day I was on the job, I showed up and this guy had killed himself with a shotgun to the face." And, and I'm like, "Guy, I don't know why you thought that was like going to help me."
That's like,
but that is not like
what you need to hear.
That is not what I needed to hear. Right. So he's like trying to help me, and I'm not panicking, but I'm just like, this is crazy. I'm shaking. So I call my wife, and I'm like, "Hey, craziest thing just happened. I like just saved this lady's life, I think. But I'm okay." And then like the police officer came back, so I had to hang up. I'm like, "Oh, I'll call you later." And so I hang up on her. And then I like called my partner. I'm like, because we were meeting at these job sites. I'm like, "Hey, this just happened. I'm not going to make it to the appointments." Right. And he's like, "Okay." Like, what do you say to that? And hangs up. And so I end up filling out my statement, and they're just like, "Hey, thanks. We'll see you later." So I just drive home. So I'm like, I can't go to work. Like it took me about 4 days to kind of decompress from that situation.
Yeah.
It was full on. So what ended up happening is they were having a marital dispute. This man and woman were married, and he had, that morning after their kids went to school, he choked her out in their apartment and passed her out, and he thought he had killed her already. And so he'd thrown her in the car and was going to go, I don't know, dispose of the body or whatever, right? And she woke up. And he's like, oh, you like made up some story about how she fell down or something and passed out, and he was taking her to the hospital. And it was almost right in front of me when she realized they weren't going to the hospital, and she remembered what happened. And that's when they started struggling, trying to get out of the car. And I'm actually good friends with her still. Like every holiday we talk for a second. She has 3 kids. She had a little boy and a little girl, and then a daughter who lived in LA. They've immigrated. And I don't know, just an amazing experience to help someone in need, right? I think most people would have helped. I just happened to be like right there, paying attention, and was obviously the person that she needed at that moment to change the course of her life. So Bountiful City gave me like a plaque and Citizen of the Year and all this stuff. So it's really a fluffy title, but
interesting,
amazing experience.
Yeah.
And so he got like life in prison without parole because he had like attempted murder, they were able to get him for like vehicular attempted homicide because he almost ran those people over with his vehicle. And the day before trial, I was actually gonna have to go to trial. I was like the lead witness for the whole thing. He took a plea deal and that was it. So it all worked out.
With that crazy story, I can't help but think you may feel like you weren't prepared, but I feel like just your mindset and maybe the way you were raised and lived your life up until then allowed you to take action in that moment. You said you think most people would. In all honesty, I think most people wouldn't, especially in today's day and age.
Yeah, most people might whip out a
phone
phone real quick. Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
So just the fact that you took action so fast and in such a accurate manner is really cool.
Yeah.
And I think that can be applied to any part of our life. Being courageous and taking action and being sure of your decisions and sticking to them. Right. So it's good to hear the full story.
Yeah, that's the full story.
It's crazy.
Yeah. It really is an amazing story.
Do you ever think back and you're like, did that even happen? Like,
you know what? It's usually when people like bring it up, they're like, hey, I saw this, like, you were like on the news and what happened? Like, it's not something I think about daily anymore. I mean, for a couple of years afterwards, it got brought up all the time. And so it was a little bit more part of my life, but I don't know. I look back and I'm like, why did I react the way I did? And I think just part of it is like, it's ingrained in me that you help others. And I think that's just what I do. I'm willing to help others, especially in those type of circumstances. And I don't know, maybe because I'm kind of more of an adventurer and I do things that I'm used to helping people in situations that are a little bit more extreme, maybe snowmobiling or canyoneering.
Yeah.
Some of those things you find yourself in situations that are a little more intense. And so that might have prepared me for that too. But I don't know. I think that it's just so critical to recognize that it's not just the destination. Again, this is one of our core values of our business, but we care how we get there. And I think that's kind of stems from part of my personal mantra in life is like, I care how I get to the destination. And I think part of that is really caring about those around you. Yeah. Helping those. And so I think it stemmed from that. And again, like I honestly believe that I was supposed to be there, right? Like I said, I had to go back and get my backpack. Like I never forgot my laptop, right? I always had it ready to go. And the fact that I got that far down and had to drive back up, it just put me in the position I needed to be in because, higher powers knew that someone was going to need help that day.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's so cool because your kids are watching, whether it's you literally saving someone's life or you just taking action in your own life, being a good person, helping other people, your kids are watching. So
yeah.
They learn from that and observe. So my last question to wrap this up is if there's one lesson that you could leave with your kids, what would it be?
One lesson. That's great. That's a great question. I would say, I honestly think one of the most important things I can give my kids is like confidence. And that innate, so confidence and understanding their self-value. Because I think the world does a great job of trying to define what someone's value is, and I think it's off. Like it really does a terrible job of painting the value of someone's life. And so I would say the most important thing I give my kids is that the understanding the tremendous amount of worth and self-value that you have. And I think if you have like a high self-esteem, a high self-vision of who you are, it just sets the tone for everything you do in life. The things you agree to, the things you accept, the standards you live, the goals and aspirations you shoot for, all comes from that center belief of I'm valued, I'm worth it, and being confident with that. So I try and do a really good job of helping my kids like recognize that. Like it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. It matters what you think.
Yeah. And
I want you to think as high as possible that you are amazing. And after that, it doesn't matter. Like, don't worry about anybody else. And if you can believe that, there's nothing you can't achieve in life. And I think you look at people in the world who do amazing things and people who live good lives. And it seems to come from this center belief that I'm important, I matter, and I'm valued. So that would be my number one thing.
I love it. And hopefully they can watch that in 20 years and say, yeah, we learned that, Dad. So
yeah, I hope so.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on. This has been awesome. Thanks for sharing your knowledge and your stories and just being here.
You bet. Thanks, brother.
Cool.